gonna get started in a few moments. I just threw up this slide for you guys to give you a taste of some of the fun events we're gonna have for the spring. There are a few events, including Graham Weinbrand, who's with us tonight, is going to be reorganizing another film screening, which will happen towards the end of the semester, and we'll have information about this. But we have 5 great events coming up. Starting, the first event that we have planned is on the 19th of January, and Herb Tam, who is a curator at the Museum of the Chinese in America, is going to come and give a talk. He is a graduate of the MFA Fine Arts program here, but is a curator there and has done a number of shows on photography, and so he's going to be giving an interesting talk. On February 8th, Jade Daskow, who is a graduate of the program, is going to be here with the filmmaker Philip Shane, who is going to be screening his documentary that he's made about her, and then they're going to be joined by Andrew Moore, who's a faculty member, and he's going to help moderate the discussion about Jade's work as a kind of landscape architectural photographer and the film and the process and all that great stuff. And then on February 22nd, we're excited to have Vera Luder, who is an alum of the program, and she's going to come and talk about her work. If you don't know about her work, she's a really fascinating artist. She makes big, giant camera obscura unique images and travels around the world and does really cool things. Towards the end of March, we're going to have Nicole Dawn Stratham, who's going to be talking about her book Through a Native Lens, which is about kind of vernacular imagery by Native Americans up until roughly, I think her book goes until the 50s. So some really fascinating stuff there. And then on the 19th, all you first-year students out there, the tables will be turned, and the exciting presentations you see happening here tonight, you will be the ones in the hot seat, which will be very exciting. So I'm really excited about tonight. This is a really great opportunity for the whole department to see the great work that your thesis students are doing. I know a lot of you are nervous, but it is hopefully going to be some good practice for you to share your work, talk about what it is you're doing, and then get some feedback. So as you guys know, some of your first years, you're going to be writing a response to your classmate, and you want to give constructive feedback. I sent you some guidelines for these a while ago, and please try and send that by next Tuesday. So you don't have a huge amount of time, but it can be short, sweet, but you want to be constructive, give them feedback. Technically about the presentation, about work that you think they might want to look at, whatever you feel is necessary to sort of help them. And maybe many of you are already familiar with the classmate who's presenting their work already, but for many of you, maybe it's new work. The way things go for those of you who are presenting, remember last spring when you did your first presentation, but for those of you new students, this is a kind of fast and furious, exciting passing the baton relay race of presentations. Everyone has 5 minutes, and you probably heard a little bit of a preview of the sound. When you hear the spooky theremin sound, that means that your time is up. So when you hear the spooky sound, that means that your time is up to sort of wrap things up and bring it to a conclusion. The challenge, of course, is you just have 5 minutes, but that is hopefully an opportunity to be succinct, to the point, talking about your work and communicating it effectively to your audience. We have, I think, roughly 15 people presenting. So we'll just go one after the other. Hopefully you guys all know the person who's in front of you goes right before you, then so you know your turn is up next. If anyone freezes and panics, I will remind you and point to you and direct you to the podium, but I'm sure you know when you're supposed to go. But I'm excited to see everyone's work, and I know all the faculty and classmates are really excited.
And we are recording it so other teachers can see it, other people who are not here. I don't know who's taking the roll, but you better make sure you're on the roll. Let me say a couple things.
Yeah.
Be sure to mark your
Please,
attendance, to make sure be sure your attendance is marked. I know those presenting are a little bit nervous, and perhaps those who are going to do the critique that they send to those presenting are a little nervous, but don't be. This is practice. It's meant to be a kind of point where you've learned what you are as an image maker and what you want to do, and you want to present it, and you want positive feedback. But positive feedback is not always saying, oh, it's wonderful, it's great, I like it. It's being critical and being helpful and pointing up the flaws and pointing up the wonderful things that are going to be in the work. So please, those of you who are writing the reports, or rather their thoughts about this, please be very thoughtful about this. And don't be Pollyanna, and don't just support somebody because they're your friends in terms of, oh, I have no criticism. It's a time also to learn how to think about your own work, because all of you will be doing this sooner or later. And some of you thesis-bound students will be doing this in a much more rigorous way in the spring. And I know that all of you are working very hard, and the semester just flew by, and in the next one will too. So, as I say every summer, this is the most important summer of your life, and some of you didn't take that so seriously, I think. But this Christmas holiday is also the most important Christmas holiday of your life. So use it to refine, make, revigorate everything that you're doing. Just one thing, as you know, some of you have reported to us that some outsiders being in our department for some classes and other issues over the last number of weeks. If you see anybody who doesn't belong in this department, or you know doesn't belong in this department, and please report it to us. It's just verboten, it's not allowed, and we've got to stop it. So it's for safety as much as anything, and security. I wish you all the best. I'm happy to be here. I'm so glad we can gather this way, and let's get started.
Hi everyone, can you hear me? Hi everyone, my name is Shuwan, and today I will talk about my works in progress for my thesis project. My thesis project mainly focuses on visual objects that bridging physical space and visual space experiences. There will be a series of photographs, physical and digital sculptures, and a virtual studio. The working title is 2FA, two-factor authentication, because I'm interested in the process of verifying the identity of the individual among different interfaces. I would like to further explore the connections and boundaries between physical and virtual in this project. My work started when I accidentally dropped my hard drive in 2018 and lost my photo archive. All my photographs are left with glitches, the results of data loss. I then started studying the glitches, merging them into new images. Which I think are static and ordered. Glitches are like bonds of boundary lying between the two spaces. In these photographs, I extruded the 2D glitch images. On the left, the original 3D print. Then we photographed these objects into rendering-like photographs. I'm interested in bringing digital objects into physical space and playing with different environments, also using space as a material in the process. I found the machine artificial intelligence my glitch works recently and expected the machine to generate pieces that match my aesthetic standards. Each of these images took 3 hours to generate. The grid map I showed before consists of these seeds. Each seed represents the AI's vision of learning and understanding of my previous works. I plan to make several puzzle boxes in the rest of the semester in 2 weeks, as I see the process of machine learning as a black box where I do not know where it goes and when it will stop without human intervention. Also, I'm working on this photo book, which includes all the computer-generated images and machine learning photographs. I plan to handmade one photo book every 2 months since the machine is learning in progress and is keeping generating new images. Here is the presentation idea of the project. I'm influenced by so many artists such as Josh Cobo, Liz Shen, Larry Bell, and Barbara Caston. I'm also influenced by the aesthetic values in the films such as Ghost in the Shell and Playtime. And that's all, thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Satvik and this is my thesis, Turn Up the Bass. Turn Up the Bass is a documentary about Harrison, a 26-year-old opera singer who's also a bass. He's trying to bring this old art form into the 21st century with his online opera initiative, which is a group of young opera singers. At the same time, he's also preparing for the Metropolitan Opera Competition, other competitions, and some major roles of his life. The material that I used to put this documentary together, as you can see, is Zoom recordings, archival footage, in-person interviews, and performances. Major influences for this thesis were Muhammad Ali and Pavarotti by Ron Howard and William Klein. So the reason for pursuing this character study and storytelling was my interest in narrating someone's life. Let me show you a small video I created during the Thanksgiving break that I got to spend with him.
I hope he's not suing you. That's one. No, that's great. I heard that you guys got the chance to watch the Figaro, the opera that I was in.
Yes, yes. I loved it. I was so impressed by your voice. I don't know where you got it from. It must be from your mother's family, because none of us can carry a tune. I'm terrible. My daughter, during Virginia, when we were in church, she told me, she'd say, "Shut up, Ma, you're off key." That was perfectly.
All right.
Keep well and keep singing.
I will. I love you so much, Grandma. Here's my dad. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
fuggendo, di veste spanno, tutte le macchine rovescerò, tutte le macchine rovescerò, tutte le macchine rovescerò, rovescerò, rovescerò. Se vuol ballare, signor Contino, se vuol ballare, signor Contino, il chitarrino le suonerò, il narino le suonerò sì, le suonerò sì, le suonerò.
We do have this idea that opera is very kind of elitist and very that it's for older people, but I think it can be done in a very exciting way. Not to say that what has I of course stand on the shoulders of all the other opera singers and all the teachers and all the people that have come before me. So I definitely do not at all have any disdain or think that what they're doing doesn't have value. Of course it does, but I want to kind of bring my own voice and what I have to say about opera. And I think that I can do it in a way that is really exciting for a lot of people who are younger and who maybe aren't opera fans currently.
The only thing to say is vincerò.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, if we haven't met, my name is Caroline Gray and I'm very excited to share my thesis with you all this evening. For the last 9 months, I have been exploring the relationship between women and the public space. What considerations and responses do women have as we navigate the areas we inhabit? What connections can we find when we explore the shared experience of women? From the first known metropolis in the 8th millennium BC, called Çatalhöyük in what is now Turkey, to the municipality of New York City in the 2nd millennium AD, women have navigated the public space for 10,000 years. There are 2 obvious but incredibly important things to first define in this project. While shared experience is a key factor in the work, it would be irresponsible not to account that experience is also influenced by race, class, nationality, age, disability, sexuality, and gender identity. I make photographs of women in different areas of New York, covering a wide range of neighborhoods that offer their own connection to class, race, class, and nationality. I include gender identity to make clear that transmisogyny cannot be tolerated in any discussion of gender. When I go out to make portraits, I exclude no one, but can only include so many in each round of edits. As this is a New York-based project, the city acts as my example of the public space. This is just one example of public space, nonetheless a very good one. Individual reaction to the public space is shaped by personal experience. This can include the environment you were raised in, if you are alone or accompanied, how attuned you are to concerns like harassment, or if you find liberation or enjoyment from the public space. In conjunction with the photographs of women, my images of the public space encourage the viewer to explore their own reaction to the space and how the images respond to each other when collected together. Using a Sony RX1R Mark II, I make portraits of women in the public space and the public space itself. I encourage viewers to allow their own personal experiences to guide them in hopes of uncovering shared experiences among women. I make portraits of women alone, women with other women, even occasionally women with men. How do these changes in surrounding affect response to the public space? I'm experimenting with both black and white and color at the moment. The color keeps the images in the present and can allow for connections between images that would be lost in black and white. However, black and white can allow viewers to focus on more subtle content, such as shape and form, without the extra visual information that color provides. For the next minute, I will be going through a few more examples of photographs, so just sit back and soak them in. Some of my historical influences include Lisette Modell, Vivian Mayer, and Gary Winogrand. Some more modern influences include Elizabeth Beck and Melissa O'Shaughnessy. I will continue making images over winter break and through mid-March. As I build this collection of images, I will be continually editing and arranging them into a series of prints, which will ultimately be my final thesis presentation. Thank you all so much for your listening, and I look forward to building this work in the months to come.
My name is Yiwen, and I also go by the name Felix. This is my thesis project. The working title is Swan, Where is Light? And it addresses mental health problems from the perspective of the people who experience them. It is an audiovisual installation with videos, projections, and still images. And here are the examples of the installation. The image on the right is a sketch of the installation, and I will build the structure to make it look finished and hide the projector. Through the distort images and text, I explore the attributes and relationship between reality, perception, distortion, and the psychological state. Because real-world experience could be quite different, especially for those suffering from mental disorders. The installation on the right explores how mental health issues are depicted in pop culture, especially pop music. In our daily lives, people don't talk much about their own emotions, vulnerabilities, or mental health problems. However, if we read the lyrics from numerous pop music, we will realize how common mental health issues are. Another example. And here are some videos and still images. This one is called Can't Think Straight, and it's about the struggles of trying to see the world clearly or think clearly, because people are suffering from either pain or brain fog, resulting from mental health issues or trauma. Or it's because people are distracted and busy chasing the things they think they need, told by the society in order to be happy. And this is Ziyu. And this one is called I'm Fine, so pretending to be fine. It's about the stigma associated with mental disorders and the difficulties of talking about it or admitting one is suffering. And these are the still images from video and more still images. This one is about mental disorder. And this one is it's called Do You Want to Blend In Like This? And my influences include Alexander McQueen, Joe Peter Wickham. The cinematic narrative follows from Alex Prager. And Hamilton, Francis Bacon, and also how Bill Viola creates the transcendental experiences with the film images and music.
Okay. Hey guys, I'm Alex, and this is my thesis. And it's called Stopped Realities, as of now. So my thesis project deals with digital media, how it behaves, functions, and affects us. We're constantly bombarded with imagery online, whether it be memes, Snapchats, GIFs, etc. And I think that this quote by art historian Claire Bishop is a good place to start. She says, "The endlessly disposable, rapidly mutable ephemera of the virtual age has an impact on our consumption of relationships, images, and communication." And I'm particularly interested in this phrase, rapidly mutable. The visual material we're confronted with online, and more specifically on social media sites like Instagram and Twitter, is extremely fast-paced and easily disseminated. One image can convey thousands of meanings, millions of meanings, and can apply to millions of different situations. And I'm interested in this relatively new way of engaging with information and communicating. So I wonder, out of the thousands of snippets of information that we are confronted with on social media on a day-to-day basis, which information lasts? Why does one meme go viral when another receives no attention at all? What do these trends say about contemporary language, or what we choose to communicate and how we do so? And even more broadly, what do they say about American culture and about humanity? My thesis project attempts to respond to and explore these questions. The project features large-scale mixed media paintings. To date, they range in size from like 54 inches to 78 inches. And my final presentation will consist of about 15 of them. My process involves sourcing image and text files from social media sites and creating collages in Photoshop and then printing them out onto canvas and kind of painting on top of them. Some of the material I'm including is like tweets, screenshots, digital conversations, memes, etc. And once I print them out, I paint on top of them, like I said, and I also try to kind of hide what's behind the paint, or kind of make the meme into painting. The paintings included in Stop Realities are permanent objects serving to preserve subject matter that is so inherently fleeting. Like perhaps we'll never know where a meme will go when we're done looking at it, but to make sense of this, the meme will forever exist within the work. In her book, Memes in Digital Culture, Professor Limor Schiffman describes internet memes as a language. She says, because memes constitute shared spheres of cultural knowledge, they allow us to convey complex ideas within a short phrase or image. Thus, instead of saying, quote, I had a bad date and I feel miserable and lonely, one can simply paste the forever alone character. This influx of shared symbols has led to the evolution of memes into a secondary layer of language, often complementing and sometimes even replacing its standard usage. So here are some more examples. Some of my influences are Robert Rauschenberg and Andy Warhol. I'm inspired by the pop idea of bringing everyday items or consumer goods and mass media into art, or the merging of low and high culture. Like, can memes and GIFs be considered fine art material which is accessible to, it is material that is accessible to anyone, so can it be fine art? Also, I'm influenced by the work of artists who incorporate new technologies like printers, scanners, Photoshop, etc. into their work, such as Laura Owens, Albert Owen, Sigmar Polka, Christopher Wool, just to name a few. And here's some more paintings that are in the works. I have a bunch like this in the works, so I'm looking forward to sharing more with you guys.
Okay. Hi, my name is Sunhong Park, and I will begin my presentation. To tell you a little bit about myself, my family moved to America when I was 13. And what I remember from my childhood is that I was constantly told about American dream in school, books, and by my parents. And that assimilating into high-class American society is the only way to succeed or having meaning in life. It almost felt like people around me would keep insisting me to follow sets of their ideals. And after being exposed to these ideals, I constantly felt anxious for not being able to fit in. And I've been hesitant on establishing my own identity. So with my current photographic practice, I decided to explore more about this idea of friction or in-between space that I think I belong in as of right now, and I feel most comfortable. I feel that I can translate this emotion to visual with obscurity, because obscurity creates a certain tension, energy, and stories that are at brink of bursting out. My work isn't aiming to send the viewer a message or provide a solution or problem per se. Instead, I aim to discover more about myself in making of this work and offer the viewers a meditative space where people can empathize with me, because I, for sure, am not alone in this. In my work, flash is an important element because it acts as an imprint, telling the viewer that I was physically there then to photograph it. It physically places me into the photographic scene. And by reporting myself in 2D space, my photographic image becomes autobiographical. In doing so, my work also becomes both personal and impersonal, creating its own tension without getting restricted by subject matter of the photograph. This is a photograph from a poster of a missing person that I rephotographed using flash. In this photograph, this person is both found and not found, alive and dead at the same time, just like Schrodinger's cat theory. I've been merging both physical and digital space together by rephotographing my image. This is another way of conveying the in-between space because the image is not 100% from digital or physical. It's also embracing the flaws of the screen, such as smudge, moire, and reflections, which are often erased or obscured in a typical photographic image that we encounter every day. My current practice was inspired by Shane Uccello's photographic series, You Are Master of Fish and Birds and All the Animals, where he explores white masculinity that is deeply embedded in our society. In doing so, he is trying to navigate himself in our society as a straight white man. In addition, other artists and writers such as Hiro Style, Dirk Raven, Gerhard Richter, Torkel Grothman, Paul Bullimore, Wally Beastie, and John Berger also influenced my work. Thank you.
everyone, my name is Mengmeng Ma. Today I'm gonna introduce my thesis project. My project is a fictional video which called The Smile. It's about the character Melissa, is a woman suffering from social panic, and she was also an experiencer of language violence. I will expose both mental health and the verbal abuse two issues in my video. And Melissa has emotion trauma in high school, and she looks forward to making new friends in college. However, she's scared of the communication, like any forms of them, like face-to-face, in social media, even texting message to the friends. And she always have complex psychological struggles, like always overthinking, because she's afraid if say something wrong will set up herself into the verbal abuse situation again. Melissa has her own way to release her pressure, like dancing on the roof alone or stay at in the bedroom alone. She thought this is the life what she wanted, but however it's not. She always wakes up by the nightmares. Every time she tries to get one more step to communicate with people, she got scared. Like these scenes, her classmates want to talk to her on the phone about team project, but she refused the phone call. After that, she started getting worried about if somebody mad at her. I will show the short clips about this scene. About my project, I was inspired by multiple films. One is called Mary Max, directed by Eden Elliott. This is an animation film. It's talk about two characters, both have mental health, but after they become pen pals, they help each other get out of the situation. And another one is called The Perks of Being in Wallflowers, directed by Stephen Chomsky. It's talk about the character when he become freshman in high school. He's too shy to make friends. And I also was inspired by Nocturnal Animal, directed by Tom Ford, because my video has a lot transition between the imaginary scene and the reality scene. This film helps me a lot to think about how to deal with the transition. And my project goal is I want people can pay attention to the issue of the mental health and help people avoiding get mental disorder, because I think help people before getting sick is better than after they get sick. And I also want to, if possible, create a more healthy communication environment. Thank you.
Thesis is a documentary film about siblings of disabled people. I have an older sister who has autism. Growing up with a disabled sibling has given me different experiences and feelings about life than other people in normal families. I have a lot of concerns and worries as I grow older. In my documentary, I visualize the feelings and concerns that siblings of people with disabilities have by interviewing siblings with archival images and B-roll footage. The interviews are about siblings' experiences and feelings when they are children, teenagers, and adults, and their concerns at the time and the future. I construct each speaker's stories by the order of their stages of life. These are some feelings that siblings face. Pressure. Siblings feel pressure from their parents, relatives, other siblings, friends, and society. Guilt. Siblings feel guilty about not helping their parents, going away from home, even about their own existence. Shame. Siblings need to deal with how other people look at their disabled sibling and their family. Siblings feel they are not normal. Worry. Siblings worry about their future with their disabled siblings. What are their responsibilities? Do they need to live with their siblings? Do they need to support them financially? Can they marry? Can they have their own freedom? These are some of the siblings I have interviewed. I am planning to include 5 to 10 people in the film. The duration will be 30 minutes to 1 hour. This is Alan and brother Fred, Maria and her brothers, Caroline and Butley, Chanel and Jeffrey. And this is a short trailer of what I have been working on.
Intellectual disability, they really can't diagnose. You know, it's a neurological disorder or it's a learning disorder. When he was born in the 50s, they were called retarded. So for us it was terrific. According to my mom, she thought that I was jealous of all the attention to him and I was misbehaving and you know, to get attention back. I don't recall any of that. I went to a college very far away from here. It was about getting away. It was always about getting away. I wanted to be a comedian when I was 6 because there was so much stress in the family. So, you know, I mean, the saddest people I know are comedians, and I think it's a way to deal with it.
My younger brother, he doesn't speak, and he doesn't have any like physical deformity or like abnormality, so he like looks super normal, which I think confuses people sometimes. A few years ago, it was like my birthday, and like we had all gone out to dinner, and so at the restaurant, the waiter kept seeing that he was like drinking the water and like refilling his glass, and so I started noticing, I was like, oh no, like he's probably drinking too much water, like this might not be good, and then he like threw up like all over the table, and you know, it was like so humiliating, but also it was like I could see it coming. I was like upset because I was like, why, like on like my birthday, like why can't we just have like a normal dinner out? Like why does everything have to be like disrupted? And my parents were like, they got really like annoyed with me and they said I was like selfish. I think they just couldn't understand like how I felt, you know? And then I was like, maybe I am selfish, like maybe I like should just learn to like relax.
I just wonder how his life is gonna turn out and if he'll be content. I do feel like a lot of responsibility.
I was influenced by Shari Silver's 37 Stories About Leaving Home, which is based on interviews with Japanese women from different generations. I also get an inspiration from documentary film, Flip Camp by Nicole Newman and James Leverett. The film is about summer camp for disabled people in the 60s and revolution of disabled people. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Stephanie. My thesis project, Lost Connection, is a short narrative film that tells the story of an Asian woman who chose to live in a new country and deal with her isolation and loneliness to overcome the obstacle in daily life, while also dealing with the challenge to her own safety in a foreign place. I was not aware of my ability until I came to New York City. Since the pandemic, many hate crimes took place in New York City and elsewhere, where, such as racial slurs and physical attacks, Asian and Asian American became a target of attack. The story talked about isolation and loneliness and discussed fear and anxiety while walking alone in New York City. The story begins with the main character who saw the hate crime happen and how she is affected and overcame this traumatizing moment. Being isolated, lonely, lostness, stuckness, disconnection, and alienation are not uncommon for all of us. There are many aspects to this kind of feeling, and even they will show up in every stage of life. We never just look at one thing. We are always looking at the relation between things and ourselves. Showing the work as short fiction helped me to express personal issues and open the discussion to tell to all the viewers who are familiar, unfamiliar with, or notice. These are some words that influenced me in many aspects of my project. Edward Hopper's painting influenced me to present the figure, location, and color arrangement to display the isolation and loneliness component. The film Friends helped me to shape the closeness and distance between the character and the foreign city. Another film, Lost in Translation, explored the connection between difficulty, feeling stuck, and uncontrollability as important content. The final presentation of the work will be a single-channel short film, around 10 to 15 minutes, based on my personal experiences and creation. I will keep shooting until the end of December and post-production during winter break and next semester. Now I will show the short trailer.
my name is Uccello. My thesis project on fixed shadows illuminates the ever-changing nature of the objects, entities, and structures around us that may not always or may never exude the phenomenological sensation of being malleable or changing. This also includes photographs themselves. My shift in creative focus has been the direct result of the COVID-19 epidemic turned pandemic turned endemic. Early on in this global upheaval, I started collating images of my family, my hometown, and myself into an old post-bound ledger. At first, I found comfort in archiving the world around me at a time of uncertainty. Yet it soon dawned on me that this was a Sisyphean task, and I discovered my creative endeavors shifting towards an opposite resolution. If the world is in a constant state of flux and transformation, my image making should not pretend to be any different. By happenstance one day, I came across the category of material called pitch. This black, glossy substance, although looking and feeling like a solid object, is actually a highly viscoelastic substance that will slowly deform over a long period of time. My initial introduction to this material was in a video outlining the world's longest-running scientific experiment. This experiment, whereby pitch is placed in a funnel and left for years to slowly drip out, was started in 1927 by Professor Thomas Parnell at the University of Queensland. This experiment is still ongoing today, where the funnel produces a single drip roughly every decade. The exact type of pitch I chose to work with is remarkably used in the optical polishing of lens elements. I chose to incorporate liquid optical pitch, called Google's pitch, into my photo making because it directly suggests photographs are not stable facsimiles of a moment in time and space either. Behind me is the process of how I've been able to create pitch tablets that can be hung on the wall and left to slowly deform. I first start by cutting out a thin sheet of plywood for the back. I use silicone to seal aluminum L channels that are being used for the mold of my pitch tablets. Once the silicone is cured, petroleum jelly is slathered onto the inside, acting as a mold-releasing agent. I then begin to heat the pitch using a portable stove until it becomes runny. I choose to pour the pitch in layers or tiers, giving the surface a melted texture, which suggests to the viewers that what they see is or once was liquid. I will periodically use a blowtorch to remove bubbles that have formed on the pitched surface. It takes several hours for the pitch to cool. Once hardened, the aluminum walls can be removed, leaving an edgeless slab of pitch. The slab can then be taken to the Visual Features lab, where an image can be directly printed on its surface using a UV printer. These are 3-month before and after gifts of early prototypes where pitch was poured into antique wooden frames and hung vertically on a wall. This test series consisted of 4 family portraits, an image of a bird bath that stands in front of my parents' house, and a frame of pitch that was irreparably damaged. It will take a decade for these images to slump out of their frame and pool onto the ground. In order to distance myself from the load reference that are imbued in old antique frames, I began to experiment with other types of frames and other ways to show my images. This included both new and old galley trays used for typesetting, setting pitch atop of a bed of dowels, and archaic thermographic prints. And while this material voyage has been fruitful in leading me to make pitch without any frame whatsoever, I'm left with the question of what images do I print onto the pitch? Do they include my landscape photographs of melding spaces, visages of people around me as they slowly age and change, or objects which no one seems to notice their slow entropy into something else? In pondering what the final set would entail, I became aware of a glaring crater I had not yet consciously considered: my own body. When I began working with this substance nearly 11 months ago, its incredibly slow rate of change, coupled with the uncertainty of COVID-19, prompted me to become healthy. And so, I have lost 10 pounds a month for the last 10 months. Excess skin will always accompany extreme weight loss. Paradoxically, this meant the healthier I became, the more my body reminded me of someone who was much older and frailer. Lately, I have begun to photograph my body like John Copeland's once did. I'm still not sure if these will be included in my final set of photographs, but it's worth having these images regardless. In closing, I will leave you with other artists and writers that are pertinent to my work. Thank you.
Did someone forget that? I'm Neil, and this is my thesis project. Look at it, keep looking, now look for it. So this project started with me discovering this very mundane but normally ignored object in the gallery space. And later on I was chatting with my friends about this new find, and then everyone said they couldn't tell it's from a gallery space. It could be from anywhere. And later on I started to include some of the traces of the characteristic of the gallery space, so it can be put back into where I found them. And through the journey, I started to looking for where they hide all these clusters of control panels, which everyone needs in their building nowadays, and how they organize them. It really intrigues me of going even deeper of this journey of searching. And sometimes I found this very intriguing object, which is not really meant to be showcased with artwork or like any artwork next to it. But I found either the outlet was like right next to one of the paintings, or how one of the sculpture casts its shadow right on the outlet, which people shouldn't be really looking at. Also, this really interests me when I found some of the gallery staff trying to hide the outlet by just putting a table over it. But this really gives me this moment of, like, are they really trying to cover it, or are they just kind of, they were doing something in between, or they don't want to see it, or do they want to put the highlight on it by putting a table on top of it? Then later on, I figured I should showcase on either the front of the gallery and sometimes what's behind the scene, or the backstage of the gallery. So some of the finding was through places that people don't really go into. It could be from the fire exit, or like the back alley, or the back staircases of the building. I was trying to make connections, like either physically, or I'm trying to oppose this connection between how all this connection goes together, as well as taking this way of finding outside of the gallery and trying to compose clusters of images as you see here. So I purposely put images to the place where they are, and I'm trying to guide viewers' eye from one to the other and find what's in the image that you normally wouldn't recognize or realize by looking at the image next to it, or the entire slide. Something could be just the repetition of the shape and the idea of either you were inside or outside the space, from showing the interior of a building and also putting an image right next to it, suggesting what's outside and what's really there to be seen in the first place. So, and I combine all these techniques into this big cluster that I curated, suggesting the urban and the nature environment. Some of them could be the similar color of the blue and this contents of human-made architectures, and also the nature. We also have this potential of growing up, but right next to the skyscraper that's showing, as well as the wood and the painted green plywood next to this growing green, and reflecting by the side of the bus stop. I was inspired by artists like Anthony Cromley and Louis Vaz. Their aesthetic and their way of looking really triggers me of how and what I should see in our day-to-day life, as well as this way of curating Bible Cantonments, how he was trying to use every space of the gallery and really work with the gallery space, rather than only using the eye-line center strip of the gallery. So the entire gallery is being used to its potential. And some of the images I was inspired by them. I took them without even knowing it, but later on when I came back to it, I can see myself was having this gesture of mimicking it, as well as I want viewers to experience my work in a 3D dimensional because you can look up, look down, and also based on the size of the print, you can walk closer to the wall and walk back. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Xiaoran. I would like to share my recent developments in my thesis project. Someone's Turf is a photographic project, includes sculptures that supports my concept. I'd like to give you some background information about my project. AstroTurf was installed in the 60s in Houston, Texas. The indoor stadium had an attempt to use natural grass, but the grass terribly raged during the second half of the season, with the dead grass often painted green. If the intention is against painting that grass is against the truth, our eyes and minds are fooled and misled by the fine looking or looking fine. The truth is we would rather perceive a fake perfect rather than a real imperfect. Green grass in the Bible gives the impression of good things in life. Lawns originally became popular to prove a person was wealthy enough to have and maintain them. Americans are in particular obsessed with their grass. Elderly front lawns represents elderly household. Good neighbors have good front lawns. Good citizens have good front lawns. In China, grass is often considered valuable for its aesthetic. In the city parks, you always see a sign telling you to stay off of the grass. Also, even for who live in an area experiencing drought, still want green lawns. I decided to choose artificial turf as my subject matter because it has a feature that suggests people are trying to achieve. It looks vibrantly green and neatly identical to the real thing. I incorporated man-made objects like consumer goods and natural objects such as food. The juxtaposition of natural products and synthetic products to invent ironic logic, at the same time speaks of comparative dialectics. I intend to make still life portraits that can reflect ideas associated constructions of social class and boundaries that lead to social, psychological, and consumer cultures that shape the world around us. In this piece, a simulate of how people planting in their lawn cut aside, open it, and place the fresh soil in the container, leaving the question of what have buried beneath and what have covered. I also incorporate found objects such as dry cleaner garment bag and clear vanilla boxes with symbolically associated to consumption. Use artificial turf piece as points of entry, which detached from original meaning of single material and open to new meaning. Natural world has inspired artists to create fantasy, but I want to use things looks natural but not to challenge the gap between the traditional perception of nature and new perception of nature. Together with my viewers to discover the meaning of nature both in and for me. Artificial grass looks so overly perfect that might quickly draw our attention away from my image's focal point. So to keep my viewers from becoming so tired in the thousands of blades of green, now I'm looking beyond the city streets to explore the new meaning of artificial turf. By doing so, let my artificial grass works function as indicators of the complete work. The complexity of living in the suburbs, which also gives a vague sense of unnaturalness at the same point. My inspirations. I inspired by the 60s land art. For the most part, it's the philosophy of Richard Long's alignment by walking. Evoked the material concern of Robert Xuemeng and earlier conceptual investigation of Michel Duchamp of the way how he using appropriated motifs and weaving them into his own creation, and also how he operating in the gap between art and life. Randy Magritte's also a big influence, especially his This Is Not a Pipe. With his pictorial and linguistic puzzles, Magritte made the familiar disturbing and strange, posing questions about the nature of representation and reality. That's all from me. Thank you for listening.
Everyone, I'm Xuemeng, and this is my project. project's about the construction and visualization of mental spaces. The mental spaces refer to virtual spaces located in one's mind that help resolve distressing emotional experiences such as
closer to the mic.
And each image in the project is a container of emotions, memories, and concerns. In this project, I work across photography, collage, and text, and the project will likely consist of 12 photographic works presented as metal or acrylic prints with no frames and no borders. The scale of each work will be around 25 by 50 inches. My thesis plan began to develop when everything gradually shifted online last year. The shift from the physical world to the virtual world made me wonder how living in such a space affects us mentally. And I was curious about how people perceive and process a large amount of stressful information and isolation. And I came to doubt whether there are universal emotions that truly resonated across time, cultures, and space. All the images I used in the project are my own photos. This is a piece I made earlier in the semester. It is a container that hosts memories of my childhood. And I created this space to reflect how I imagine visual memories are stored and merged over time. I did not want to limit this project to an exploration of memory, so I experimented with adding other elements, such as adding text, and created these spaces that intend to help one accept the feeling of alienation and reimagine it playfully. For instance, in this piece, there is an eagle ray flying across the sky over a country road, and next to the image is a 3D wireframe of a Chinese takeout container, which is a design that really exists outside of the space. And the text is a series of official definitions of a non-resident alien versus a resident alien in the States. I also tried reconstructing images as puzzles. Here I used 2 photos of subjects when they're alone to be a place where isolation is usual and shared, but unresolvable. Although each work in the project can stand alone as an individual space, they are also intertwined and serve as parts of a whole because they are all derived from my self-concept. Self-conception is in a complex relation to form, and geometric shape is one of the elements that bring the parts together and appears in every work in the project. The shapes define borders of the spaces and also serve as the entrance to a built world. In physical prints, the white areas in the center of the cuboid are cutouts. The prints are not completely attached to the wall, but leaving a space in between the prints and the wall, adding 3D-dimensionality and depth to the work. I think my project lies at the intersection of perceived reality and constructed spaces where self-awareness is playfully reimagined. Photography as a medium intends to take viewers to different places, and I'd like to share with audiences mindful spaces that I built, and invite you all to search for yours. I'm influenced by artists from various mediums and time periods. For instance, I find inspiration in works by Elizabeth, whose work has an architectural quality and shows unlimited possibilities of geometric shapes. I'm also influenced by Sarah Charlesworth's Objects of Desire project and Julia Moratu's paintings that depict the psychogeography of space. At this point in my project, some of the major challenges that I face are figuring out how to approach and engage audiences with various backgrounds, and finding materials and presentation methods that truly convey the mindfulness of my themes. And along with creating new works, I will spend the following semester trying to solve these challenges. Thank you so much.
Hello everyone, my name is Ziyu, and this is my thesis project. It's a short film called Where is My Cat? Where is My Cat is a 20-minute film that explores the border between fantasy and reality. It's a story based on my own experience about a cat I had in New York that was lost and found. During the pandemic, I put my cat at my friend's house in New York and returned to China on my own. A few months after returning to China, my friend told me that the cat was lost. In the process of finding my cat, I realized that my feelings for the cat were more fragile than I had thought. I began to fantasy about where my cat would go. This imagination grew stronger and stronger, so I want to portray my feelings and fantasies about my cat through this film. And this is the short trailer. These are some screenshots from the film. I'm in the film as the lead actor, so I can have a better experience about how much I miss my cat and also New York City. The story is a dual narrative, which one side of the story being how while in China I try to find my cat through the internet, and the other side being my friend in New York looking for my cat and my fantasy of cat adventures. I use cat's point of view in order to give viewers a dramatic experience. These are some references. In Patty Chang and David Kelly's film, the discussion of what is imaginary intrigued me. As Patty mentions in the film, imagining is a way to compensate for the loss. In Caroline Schneeman's work, Infinity Kisses, she shows the unique relationship between her and her cat. For me, the cat is more like an alter ego of mine. In the film, The Private Life of a Cat, there are no human scenes throughout the film. Viewers will follow the perspective of two cats and experience their life. That's all, thank you.
I think that's it, right? Did we miss anyone? Sorry, I can't, my phone doesn't recognize me with my mask on. Well, these were really great guys.
Really tired. Well done. Now get to work.
Yeah, now the hard part. But thank you everyone for sharing your work tonight. It was really great to see what everyone's been working on. Hopefully all of you who are watching were able to take notes and are going to have some good feedback for your classmates. But we will be seeing you guys around in the next 2 weeks or so. The semester is rapidly ending. But if I personally don't see any of you before the break, have a fabulous break and be productive. Take a breather. You've all worked really hard. And it's been great being back here in person and seeing you guys all in classes and making work and studying and struggling and all those good things you do in grad school. So congratulations, kudos to everyone tonight. And